Happy 50th birthday, San Francisco Heritage, from all of us at Homes. I'm Paul, current Vice Chair of San Francisco Heritage and Principal at Homes, a structural and fire engineering firm and long-term partner of SF Heritage. We started many years ago in and around the Bay Area, looking at how we could apply creative solutions to protect and preserve the city's buildings and landmarks. We're still passionate about that same thing, looking to create a better city for future generations to enjoy. So here's to 50 more. Happy birthday.
Congratulations on your 50th anniversary. Lots of heritage, lots of memories, lots of happy memories. I grew up, started in Haight-Ashbury, but very soon, at 3.5, I moved to Forest Hill. And soon thereafter, I went to West Portal Grammar School, and then to St. Brendan. What a great place. West Portal, the shops, the schools, Sutro Forest, the whole ambiance around that particular area. The L car, the M car, the K car going through the tunnel. It's a great time. Much of it's changed, a lot of it's gone, but much remains the same. Honor our heritage, and it will reward us immeasurably. Congratulations.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Dam-Kroger, Chair of the San Francisco Heritage Board of Directors. On behalf of our board and our staff, welcome to our 50th anniversary celebration and soiree. We're delighted to be joined tonight by many of our founding members, longtime supporters, and friends from near and far. We're grateful for the support that has brought us to our 50th year and confident that it will propel us for another 50 years. Heritage was founded to protect the history, culture, and character of our city. We've had some losses, but we've had a whole lot of success. What Heritage accomplishes is due to the commitment of our supporters, you, those here with us at Fort Mason, and those at home watching with us virtually. We literally cannot do what we do without your support. My challenge to you tonight is to stay with us, help drive us forward, and broaden our reach to preserve the phenomenally rich and diverse resources of our city. Thank you to our generous supporters and everyone with us this evening. Have a wonderful evening.
Good evening. We are your Heritage Soirée 2021 co-chairs.
I'm Elisa Skaggs, board member.
I'm Catherine Petrin, board member.
And we never imagined that we would be planning Heritage at 50 soiree during the pandemic. But here we are at a drive-in,
live streaming, and we can't wait for next year when we can all be together to celebrate Heritage at 50 plus 1.
But for tonight, we ask that you join us in toasting Heritage at 50.
Cheers. Cheers.
Hello, everybody. My name is Woody LaBounty, and welcome to Soirée 2021, a celebration of San Francisco Heritage's 50th anniversary. That's a half century of preserving and enhancing San Francisco's unique architectural and cultural identity. We have a great turnout here at the Fort Mason Drive-In, and we have friends who are tuning in from virtually all around the world. I want to give sincere thanks to all of you because I know that you want to keep San Francisco special, that is an important thing to you, and you understand the role that San Francisco Heritage plays in doing that. So thanks for coming tonight, and thank you for your support of us. Let me give you a brief rundown on the program we've got planned tonight. It's going to be fun. We have a documentary from Bread and Butter Films on Heritage's first 50 years, featuring interviews with people who were there from the very beginning. The documentary takes place in 4 chapters, and we're going to show you all 4 parts. But in between, there are special features on the work that San Francisco Heritage is doing right now today. There'll also be a few birthday greetings from local luminaries mixed in. Also part of the evening is a slate of silent auction items that I want you to be aware of because the bidding will close on them tonight during the program. I'll give you notice, but we have a getaway to Cavallo Point. We have original artwork. We have whiskey tastings with a group of your friends at one of our historic properties. Just terrific items, and you can bid right now. If you're at home, you'll see the items off to the side of me. If you're here at the drive-in, you can also bid on your device. And if you're having trouble accessing the site, just raise your arm out the window. Somebody will come by and get you straightened out. They may even bring you some junior mints because, hey, it's a drive-in. Okay. One last thing that I want to be clear on. I think we know, but let's be safe. This is a fundraiser. We are trying to raise money to support San Francisco Heritage in the next 50 years. So if you see a donate button on your screen on the device, click on it and give us a few dollars. Give us a lot of dollars if you can. We'll take it. We depend on your support. We want to make this evening a financial success as well as a celebratory event. All right, enough business. Get all that out of the way. Let's start our show with the first chapter of the documentary. I'll be back a little later.
All over the country in the 60s, there was an attitude that old was bad. It was make freeways, put freeways through, make new buildings. Charles Hall Page, whose name is famous to us all, and his friend Harry Miller had started San Francisco Heritage because they were concerned that no one was being an advocate for the historic look of San Francisco, the historic urban design patterns, the historic buildings of San Francisco.
San Francisco Heritage began on a park bench with 2 people talking about the wholesale destruction of the urban renewal plan to remove all of the Victorians, which at the time were considered junk, and realizing that this is wrong, that something very valuable to the culture and history of San Francisco was being lost, and something needed to be done to try and call attention to that.
It wasn't right for a number of reasons. One, of course, was the housing stock. The other was the sort of Victorian design and architecture. Another was that this was a community of the people who lived in these houses.
There was a very broad and active historic preservation effort nationally, particularly in urban areas around the country. And that, I think, was an encouragement and support for organizations like Heritage.
I think Charlie wanted to do a San Francisco version of Charleston, Savannah, etc. And those organizations had been around for a really long time, 50 years, maybe more. They were well established in their communities.
The redevelopment era emerged in the 1950s and 60s across the country. It was an effort to clear urban blight from our cities. And in many ways, the preservation movement is a direct response to the demolition of historic neighborhoods that occurred during that redevelopment push. San Francisco Heritage was founded in 1971 after redevelopment plans in San Francisco called for the demolition of large swaths of neighborhoods such as the Western Addition that displaced primarily African American residents, also demolished many very significant Victorian homes and neighborhoods in that era.
Certain of the oldest and least powerful properties were slated for demolition, despite the fact that they held very important buildings in terms of examples of Victorian housing.
Heritage convinced redevelopment agency that we should move those Victorians because they were each one architecturally significant.
They were moved to south of Geary and about Divisadero.
You have to do this at night because there can't be any traffic. And Victorians are tall, and even if you try to pick streets that don't have any overhead wires, you're never going to find a whole path that will be. So you have to pay the city and others to come and take the overhead wires down, let the building get through that block. The wires in the next block are down. These go back up. And this just the moving truck goes pretty slowly too. I mean, it's not zipping along.
That was all done one night in a very cold evening. We drank a lot of rum that night, or brandy actually.
Oh, it was very fun. It was very cold, but it was very fun. Some of the redevelopment agency staff brought coffee and people brought snacks. And the whole preservation community turned out.
The 1960s were a watershed moment, and from the standpoint of preservation, the National Historic Preservation Act was created in 1966, and this set in motion people's rethinking of preservation ideals. People were thinking in terms of what do we have and what is valuable.
As the city grew, its residential architecture took distinctive forms, and in older sections, blocks of apartments like these are still common.
A group of architectural historians had decided that San Francisco needed to have an architectural study done of it. And they decided to go to the Junior League because the Junior League had ladies who had to do volunteer work and who were probably pretty well educated. So they thought that was a good place to start.
Mrs. Gigi Platt and her Junior League members had seen that the city was vulnerable. And so they did an amazing forethoughted study called Here Today, and they identified important structures which they also felt might be vulnerable. It started to elevate the awareness of the resource that we had.
Heritage was a fledgling organization in 1971 and was sharing space with the National Trust for Historic Preservation. About 9 people in its one-person office.
The Haas Lilienthal family, their heirs, had a house which they loved and I think were quite torn by the prospect of turning it over to the market. They wanted to, of course, retain the integrity of the property.
In 1973, the Haas Lilienthal family, the descendants, gave the house to San Francisco Heritage. And in addition to having their offices at the top floor, Heritage opened the lower 2 floors as a house museum.
What it really did was to give Heritage a home, for people to think of it as this represents the organization.
San Francisco architectural heritage, by owning the house, had a focal point. It had a place that it could invite people for house tours. It could have lectures in the ballroom. You could rent it out for an evening party. And I just think it's wonderful.
This is Gary Camilla, sending birthday greetings to San Francisco Heritage on the occasion of its 50th year. Thank you, San Francisco Heritage, for all you do to keep our city's history alive and vibrant, including establishing the Legacy Business Registry, which has allowed many iconic small businesses to survive. Happy birthday, and I hope you have at least 50 more years, San Francisco Heritage.
So when you think of someone's heritage, the first thing that pops into your head might be the history behind their ancestry. You know, their family, their traditions, their values, all the things that have been passed down over generations. But here in San Francisco, there's plenty more than just the people that get celebrated. We also celebrate the businesses. Legacy businesses, that is. For years and years and years, San Francisco has been home to a thriving landscape of neighborhood businesses that occupy an essential role in the stories and rituals that define our city. Places that have attracted locals and visitors alike to experience the unique character and sense of community. And one of those places is the Richmond District's Green Apple Books. Originally opened in 1967, it's now one of the largest independent bookstores in the city. 2 stories, 8,000 square feet, and billions of words worth of reading material. Inside both the main building and the annex 2 doors down from it lies a winding catacomb of shelving chock full of cookbooks, biographies, ghost stories, romance novels, movies, art books, records, and comics. Old favorites behind every nook, shiny new releases through every cranny. The best thing about Green Apple's glorious collection, though, it's protected, not just by fire insurance, I hope, but by what's known as the Legacy Business Program. This program aims to recognize, preserve, and celebrate long-standing businesses in San Francisco that have played an integral part in upholding the city's cultural identity. It doesn't matter if it's a skate shop, a locksmith, or simply a place that sells the most important kitchen tool known to man. All it takes is decades of service and a fiery dedication to preserving San Francisco history. Today, the program is run by the city's Office of Small Business and features over 250 local and family-owned shops, eateries, and boutiques on its list, each one a pillar of strength within their respective communities. But the program started out as an initiative put together by SF Heritage to help identify the purveyors of San Francisco's culinary excellence, aka the bars and restaurants. Places like Beep's Burgers, Twin Peaks Tavern, and the legendary Samoa in Chinatown were all gathered together under the same umbrella because they represented everything great about San Francisco. But these are also spots that, despite serving great food and amazing drinks, may not have otherwise qualified for a more formal historic designation. So take the Buena Vista Cafe, for example, a cozy, century-old restaurant with an incredible view of the waterfront and an Irish coffee recipe that predates most of the baby boomer generation. Outwardly, it's nowhere close to being the most glamorous restaurant in the entire city, but what it does have is history, and lots of it. In fact, they all do. Each business on the Legacy Business Registry has more than 30 years of service under their belt, and thanks to SF Heritage, there's a good chance they'll be around for another 30 more. The registry has been a hit over the last decade, garnering national attention for being the first of its kind and spawning similar initiatives in cities like Los Angeles and San Antonio to help preserve the massive number of historical businesses at risk of closure. So if you're looking for a way to support all the legacy businesses here in the city, The best thing I can recommend is to just go there. Go there and support them. Go there and spend your hard-earned dollars at a place that means something to the city. Hey everyone, Joey Yee here, and just want to say thank you to SF Heritage for putting this event together. Happy 50th anniversary, and hope you guys all have a great rest of your night. See ya!
Good evening, everyone. David Ballman here, speaking to you from North Carolina to congratulate Heritage on 50 years of extraordinary advocacy to protect San Francisco's spectacular architecture. I am honored to have been a part of these successes and send the best of wishes to you all for another wonderful 50 years. Have fun.
Hi, I'm Linda Jo Fitz. I was on the Heritage staff from 1972 to 1981, and later in the 80s served on the Heritage Board, where I became president and chair. I've been involved with Heritage on and off for all of these 50 years, and I am just so happy to celebrate the 50 years of Heritage and all its successes.
In the early 1975, the biggest changes that were taking place were in the downtown and the financial district.
This was a period of considerable prosperity in this area, and the downtown was under assault. There was demand for space, there was speculation, there was tremendous pressure on the existing stock of commercial buildings. And the developers were very intent on scraping off the building and replacing it with something.
One of the early projects included the efforts to save the several historic buildings downtown, the Alaska Commercial Building, the City of Paris, and the building where Saks Fifth Avenue is.
The county planning department had issued a permit for the demolition of this Alaska Commercial Building. That was my first sort of public appearance, if you will, was to argue for the importance and historical value of that building. It was unsuccessful, as were virtually all of our efforts to stop the removal of historic downtown buildings.
Those kinds of projects made us realize that we were just fighting one argument at a time, one potential demolition at a time.
The ability to compete with a commercial real estate market was simply not realistic. So I think the organization's mission became advocacy and education.
We needed to have a coherent way to deal with all of this. We needed there to be a survey of historic buildings.
Splendid Survivors is the title of the book that resulted from that. That also was a first for the nation in terms of objectifying evaluations of buildings. And Heritage was a pioneer in developing that tool.
The city basically accepted the results of the San Francisco Heritage Survey and codified them. They ranked historic buildings downtown. They established historic districts of significant clusters of historic buildings.
It really was the project that the city needed in order to have those buildings be with us even today. So I really think that that was the most important thing that Heritage did.
When we bought the Cadillac in '76, there were only 30 rooms that were occupied by anyone, and they were in very bad shape. A lot of the rooms had broken windows. The entire building had been stripped of all the brass fixtures, so all the light fixtures, the sconces had been taken out and sold. We wanted to try to bring it back up to code, and we wanted to create an environment where people could feel they were at home. So we reached out to Heritage, and that's how I met Arnie Lerner.
When I came to the Cadillac, I was very familiar with preserving housing in a place where low-income people had lived. So that seemed the right thing to do and an important thing to do. One of the things I learned when I came here that kind of stuck with me was people who were working here were telling me stories of elderly people who lived in the neighborhood, and when they had to move or were evicted, died within 2-3 weeks of having left, and which impressed upon me even more the importance of staying in your community and how important that was just for their health, not only for just providing them housing, but for preserving that community.
You have to understand that the Tenderloin has a tremendous stigma against it. We have 88 people in this hotel who were homeless for 15 years who now have a home. And now it's part of the National Historic District. And that was done based on Heritage's work initially. They gave us expertise. They told us what we should do, who we should see, where we should go to do this restoration.
Heritage had what I thought was a brilliant idea about preservation, which was that for preservation to be successful, you needed to form alliances within the community to be able to have any kind of effect politically.
By helping us create a historic district, you've created a environment where people felt some pride, some dignity in being involved.
Heritage continues to provide motivation for people to preserve not just the architecture of their community, but those things that give it value and importance. Buildings are invested with memory, and it's that collective memory that builds and binds communities together.
Hi, I'm Woody LaBounty, back again. I hope you're enjoying the program so far. That Joey Yee, he's a great friend of ours, an educator and an entertainer. Check out more of his work online. It's terrific. I'm popping in right now to tell you our silent auction items are going to close after this next section of the program. So get your bids in now for the Cavallo Point Getaway, for those fine whiskey tastings. Those are great whiskeys, by the way, from around the world that you can share with your friends at one of our historic properties. The Jeremy Fish artwork, get your bids in now. We're going to close the bidding after this next section of the programming. And this is your chance to get something great and support San Francisco heritage. So it's a win-win. I know if you were, when you watch those first chapters of the documentary, I know you're probably as inspired as I am by Heritage's origin story, by the challenges and the far-reaching ideas that preserved so much of what we value about San Francisco. But I got to tell you, this next chapter coming up is my favorite. It really shows how we've adapted, how we've grown, how we've expanded the very idea of preservation. I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you soon.
Over the past decade, there has been a growing desire in San Francisco communities to preserve not only the city's architectural heritage, but the living history that's embodied in our legacy businesses, our festivals, events, traditions, all these things that really contribute to the city's cultural heritage.
As a city, our landmarks are very much associated either with high architecture or mostly the history of white communities in San Francisco. So there's been a movement within the field of preservation to bring in new stories, bring in new people.
I think that the attempt to reach a larger constituency in the city is a major change since I worked at Heritage, and one that had to happen.
Is historic preservation about just saving buildings? Is it about preserving beautiful architecture? That's what we've been so good at doing over our past 50 years. But the conversation really was changing.
We often talk about tangible heritage and intangible heritage. Tangible heritage would refer to elements of the built environment, like historic buildings, parks. When we talk about intangible heritage, we're talking about elements of our culture.
Intangible cultural heritage includes non-physical characteristics like customs and traditions,
dance, music,
languages and artistic expressions, and even cuisine.
And so over recent years, we've started to look at, are we saving the spaces in which intangible heritage can happen?
This is the heart of the mission. Specifically, we are standing in Balmy Alley, and this alley is important because the muralist movement began here. It tells the story of the fight that the community has had to endure to survive. We have 1 or 2 murals that are from the 60s, but yearly we are renovating, we are adding, we are removing and putting back on because time changes, and it's important for us to continue the narrative as time changes.
Starting around 2010, with the influx of tech companies into San Francisco, we saw dramatic rises in rent that were displacing some of the cultural anchors in our communities. But we as a preservation organization lacked the tools to protect them.
So for a long time, community organizers here in the Mission and also in cultural communities across the city were seeking out new preservation strategies and tools.
We started seeing, the sad part of what gentrification can do to a neighborhood, where the common folk, the working class folk that actually lives here could no longer afford.
People that have started businesses and were unable to pass it on to the next generation. These are pieces of living history that were being lost.
And so that's the reason the cultural district was established. And there isn't anything like that in the entire country. This is the first cultural district in the nation, and based on that fact that we went through the process and we prevailed, now in the city of San Francisco there are 8 cultural districts.
This is part of a growing national conversation, and Heritage has led these efforts with, for example, the creation of the Legacy Business Registry to recognize the importance of the living heritage embodied in these historic businesses. They are really the cultural undercurrent of our communities. They are what make our communities living and breathing places that we want to live.
So the Legacy Business Registry helps us in the sense that we will cement businesses that you could not find anywhere else. For example, where to buy your masa for tamales, where to buy your masa for tortillas. There are very many things that you can buy here that you cannot find anywhere else. It is important for us to remember, what was here before me, what was here before my parents.
So if historic buildings are the bones of our city's character, then the cultural communities and the businesses that occupy them really give our city its heart and its soul.
Hello, historian Dennis McNally here, sending out greetings to SF Heritage on the occasion of their 50th anniversary. As a historian of the counterculture of San Francisco, I'm particularly grateful to them for what they're doing with the Doolin Larson House, which is located, for those of you who don't know, on the corner, the fabled corner of Haight and Ashbury. And as a longtime San Francisco resident, it just seems to me that SF's heritage is our heritage. So, congratulations, SF Heritage. I wish you 50 more.
Let's face it, dude. This is like one of the strangest years in human history where no matter where you were, what you were doing, you're stuck inside, be it your house or this giant house on the other side of the city. We're on the corner of Haight-Ashbury, where I've been living and working for the last 3 months on an artist-in-residency project celebrating the history of this neighborhood.
They represent a new form of social rebellion. Stimulated and heightened by doses of LSD. This city has gained the reputation of being the hippie capital of the world.
As you enter into the mid-60s, you got LBJ and the onset of the Vietnam War and the institute of the draft after not having one in decades. Kids from all over the country wanted to come here and be a part of this disillusioned generation that was looking for answers.
You can join the Army, you can go to war, you can get a gig, drive to work in your own big metal box. You know, it looks absurd.
What we're thinking about is a peaceful planet. We would all like to be able to live an uncluttered life, a simple life, a good life.
From what I've been told, by 66, 67, it was awesome. By 68, 69, a lot of gnarly drugs had come into play. And by the early 70s, this neighborhood was boarded up and mostly closed and pretty dangerous. I'm a 46-year-old guy, and this stuff happened more than 46 years ago. So it's like my take on it, my style of drawing, combined with the stories people were telling me, and also by the aesthetics of the visual art from that time. This is a very scary time to be a human being. I hope the sort of ideology of the neighborhood isn't just tie-dyed shirts, that it's the philosophy that goes behind that, and that people actually do sort of explore the neighborhood's history and take some of those bumper stickers and slogans to heart. This neighborhood has had a lot of different identities. With tourism being completely non-existent, it's taken a real hit. The neighborhood hasn't been this fucked up since the 70s, since post-Summer of Love. This area has become really dangerous again. It's an open drug market. Nobody's stopping anybody from doing anything out here. I take a big page from this guy, Jimmy, that owns Distractions down the block. He opened his store in the early 70s when things were really bad. He said, you know, if I have to close because the street is dead once again, I look forward to the young person like I was that comes in after me and gets to reinvent the next phase of Haight Street. That's a window that hasn't been open in San Francisco in decades. And will the history be lost? I don't think so.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Fales. I'm here at the Doolin Larson building on Haight-Ashbury, the corner of Haight-Ashbury. And I just want to give a special shout out to SF Heritage for this beautiful opportunity to create some beautiful art and be the third artist in residence. So thank you guys. It's always been my dream to live on Haight-Ashbury.
Hello, it's Woody LaBounty again. That last piece of Jeremy Fish at the House on Haight, which is our Doolin Larson building, was filmed by Jeremy McNamara. Thanks so much to both Jeremys for helping put that piece together. It really highlights the great opportunity that we're exploring there at the Doolin Larson building to have it be a center of arts and culture. And I think that video highlighted how much healing the city still has to go through after a very difficult 2020. This was rough on everybody, of course, the whole world, including Heritage. But as we come back, we need to make sure that we keep what makes San Francisco special intact. And Heritage has an important role to play in that with your support. So tonight, you can secure a piece of artwork that Jeremy Fish made at the Doolin Larson building during his residency there. It's in the silent auction, which, this is big news, I am closing in 2 minutes. This is your last chance to bid on the Cavallo Point getaway, those great whiskey tastings with your friends at the historic properties, the Jeremy Fish artwork, all of that is closing within 2 minutes. So get your bid in right now. And while you're doing that, I just want to thank our Soirée 2021 co-chairs, our board members, Elisa Hernandez-Skaggs and Catherine Petrin, and the Heritage staff, which has worked so hard to make this event a success tonight. So thank you so much, Heritage staff, for all the hard work you've put in. And finally, our sponsors. Without our sponsors, you've seen their logos on slides before the show and in your program, but without them, we really couldn't have done this event at all. So thank you so much to all the firms and all the individuals who came forward to sponsor our special 50th anniversary celebration tonight. All right, silent auction is closing in like 30 seconds, but get ready for the last chapter of the documentary and a very special request I'm going to make at the end of that. So stay tuned. Thanks again.
Looking back over 50 years, I think it's probably indisputable that Heritage has made a big difference in how the city looks and the understanding about the value and importance of historic character. The forces of growth and economic interests are extremely powerful. So, a relatively small nonprofit is a David battling Goliath. But that doesn't mean you have to just wipe away and give away everything that's important from the past.
What I find meaningful is when I'm working with people who really want to make sure that their legacy is not lost. That means working with communities, speaking with them, engaging with each different community to understand what elements of their cultural heritage do they want to pass on to the next generation.
We're at the Doolin Larson residence at the corner of Haight and Ashbury, also known as the crossroads of the counterculture. It was the former home of Norman Larson, a longtime supporter of San Francisco heritage. He left the property to the organization to create a cultural destination at this site that not only preserves its architecture, but celebrates its incredible counterculture legacy through traditions, through performances, through art. There's an artist in residency program that launched in 2020. There's often a perception that historic places are static places that don't have vibrancy. Some of the most successful experiments that Heritage has championed over the past decade involve partnerships with arts organizations. They bring entirely new audiences into historic buildings to discover them. So the Doolin Larson building is really an incredible opportunity to extend our commitment to the neighborhoods and to really anchor ourselves in the heart of one of the most historic neighborhoods in San Francisco.
One of the last projects I worked on was the designation of Ingleside Presbyterian Church and the Great Cloud of Witnesses. That neighborhood in the 50s, 60s kind of became an African-American enclave. And so on the interior of the church was a collage mural that was created by the Reverend Roland Gordon. But it's really a tribute to African-American history, community, and culture.
I don't think people were aware of the beauty of these buildings and their importance in terms of the historical landscape of San Francisco without Heritage advocating for it. I really don't. The Tenderloin would have been a redevelopment area. It would have looked like south of Market in no time. And instead, we've preserved some of these legacy buildings that offer housing that's so desperately needed. And it was all because people had foresight. And Heritage had that.
It's really important for Heritage to exist and be there, you know, as an advocate, as a watchdog.
If it wasn't for San Francisco Heritage, I think San Francisco would look like any other city in the country with a lot of new, ugly buildings. I put San Francisco in the category of Boston and New Orleans as the unique three that are very human-scaled and very, very enjoyable to be in because of architecture, because of attitude, and because of pride in our city.
San Francisco Heritage can not only be proud for its work in preserving the historic buildings of our city, but also for its leadership nationally in expanding the historic preservation movement to include legacy businesses and traditions and intangible heritage, and really expanding the role of the preservation movement and its impact on the lives of everyday people.
There will always be a need for a group like San Francisco Heritage to be vigilant and to provide those tools for the community to not only recognize what's important to them, but preserve them for future generations of San Franciscans and the country.
What an amazing evening. What an amazing evening. It's such an unusual event we had here. We have people live and we have people around the world, and just sort of interacting with both of them has been quite an adventure tonight. I got to tell you, we didn't know. It's really a big kudos to the staff and to all the volunteers to pull this hybrid event together. I'm just so happy to have seen so many friends and family of Heritage, you might say, here tonight. It's just been wonderful to talk with everybody. But after that last chapter, there might be some weeping eyes here in the Fort Mason production room I'm in. But I think they're ones of inspiration. You heard some of those quotes at the end there from Stuart Morton and Kathy Looper, Mike Buehler and Arnie Lerner on Heritage's importance and its impact. And we have to also remember, though, that Heritage did not do all of this alone. So many community organizations and groups like the Victorian Alliance of San Francisco, the GLBT Historical Society, the Japantown Organizing Committee, city officials, city agencies, developers who understand how important preservation is to the city's vitality and its recovery from this pandemic year. All these folks are all on board with us and really making all the incredible things that happen. That includes some very inspiring and passionate individuals over time, including the late Bruce Bonacker, for whom the documentary was dedicated. And this is the important part of the evening I kind of foreshadowed, which is one of those passionate and dedicated supporters of Heritage stepped forward just a couple of weeks ago and said to us, in honor of your 50th anniversary, I want to make a matching gift of $50,000, which I got 2 weeks ago. We didn't know about this. It was an amazing gift that just came out of the blue, and I can't tell you how blown away we were. And then my next question was, can we match $50,000 in one evening? Do we have the people and the willpower to do that? And I kind of hope that we do. And we're going to start tonight. And I already see that $13,000 has already been raised without me even asking tonight. So just thank you all so much. I see Andrea Lewis and Matt Nichols, Leo Chow, Merle Easton, an old friend of Heritage, have already contributed. I want to thank you so much. But I want to see how much of that match we can get tonight. And just to give you an idea, let's start at kind of a high level. I think it's a high level, $5,000. I want to see if we can get somebody out there to kick us off to get this $50,000 match with a $5,000 donation. I think there's probably some folks who can do that. I know there's people in the room that are nodding that there are. And there it is. We have Gigi Platt, an old friend of Heritage, a supporter for decades. And you saw her in the documentary. She has come forward and given $5,000 towards that match. Now, I just want to let everybody know that each dollar given is doubled with this match. So that's really $10,000 to San Francisco Heritage. Just an amazing thing. And what can $5,000 do? Well, like Bob Berner said in the documentary, you know, we're a relatively small nonprofit, but we can do so much. With $5,000, we could get a city landmark nomination or a National Register nomination done and really protect those places that make San Francisco so special and so vital to the city's culture and its architecture. So $5,000 was an amazing bid pledged by Gigi Platt. I want to thank you for that, Gigi. You know I love you. I just think you're the best thing for Heritage, and it's just great to have you here. How about this? $2,500. I know there's people out there who could probably come in at the $2,500 level. And let me just give you an idea of what that would do. I talk about this. We had Joey Yee earlier showing the legacy businesses. And that's what Heritage has really been working on the last year during the pandemic, is helping legacy businesses survive. And $2,500 would go a long way to keeping places like Bimbo's 365 Club or the New Delhi restaurant in business. We're out there actively trying to help legacy businesses to find emergency aid and support for them and really make that legacy business registry do its job, which is supporting those cultural anchors, those cornerstones of San Francisco for us. So if you can give $2,500, you're going a long way to helping the legacy business registry make a difference. And I see Nancy and Tom Gilly have stepped forward. They've given $2,500. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Tom. $2,500. Robert Emmons has also come in at $2,500. I can't tell you how important that is, especially to our city's legacy businesses. It's an important thing not only for us after 2020. You know, we want to get out and we want to see people. We want to be in places, community gathering places, and $2,500. Prudence Noon has come forward at that level. Thank you, Prudence. We really appreciate it. I just want to also say that there's so many people in here that are just like cheering right now. And I got to say, you people here at the drive-in, whoever, you know, if you want to honk your horn for any of these things, I'm okay with that. We're at a drive-in. Thank you. I hear you out there honking. We want to thank these people for stepping forward. Okay. Where are we at now? We got $27,000 already raised for that $50,000 match. We're more than halfway there. Let's move to the $1,000 level. Can we do that right now? I just want to explain a little bit about how much $1,000 can do for San Francisco Heritage and our work in the city. We started a program called Heritage in the Neighborhoods in the last year, in which we go to every corner of the city, trying to help the groups, the people out there who have already been doing the good work, and elevate and raise their profile. Places like the Excelsior District, the Parkside District, where we have helped get a nomination for the Trocadero Clubhouse in Stern Grove as a city landmark. Places like the Marina, right here where we are today. And we want to keep doing that. We want to reach every corner of the city. And every $1,000 really helps us keep our programming going. It's sort of like the fuel of an engine. I see that Ted has come in at $1,000. Thank you, Ted, so much for that. I know you already have given so much to San Francisco Heritage over the years, but this little extra bit is just so appreciated. Somebody just honked for Ted, I know. Look, Simon has come in at 1,000. Simon Snellgrove, thank you, Simon. I know you've been here all night donating all through the evening. I think, you're just like, you might be the king right now. We're looking at the numbers here, and you might be the king of contributions. We'll give you your crown on the way out. Are we ready? How many people are coming in at $1,000? A lot, right? We've got more than $33,000 already raised to the 50. And like I said, that's matched. So right now, dollar for dollar, we have matched 33,000 of that $50,000. Okay. How about we go to the $500 level, Rachel? I think I just was watching the documentary with everybody here tonight, and I saw Linda Jo Fitz, who is just such an important person to Heritage's history, a very early employee, director, just a big part of Heritage's life, you might say. And she mentioned in there the important role that Heritage has as a sort of a city watchdog. And I can tell you that $500 is basically helps us get out there and meet with these project sponsors to make sure they're Francisco, that really kind of keep the spirit of San Francisco alive. $500, we go to the Historic Preservation Commission, we go to the Planning Commission, we're out there lobbying and actively engaging with people on projects. $500 helps us do that. It really helps us get out there and be the advocates for the city. Every $500, Carolyn Squeary over in St. Francis Wood, such a stalwart for that neighborhood. She's come in at $500. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I hope I get to see you soon. So many friends and family we haven't seen over the last year, but it's great to see you virtually here. Deb Grant, who is a former employee at Heritage, such a great person to have around the office. She's come in. Catherine Burns has come in at $500. Thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate it. And my old friend Brady Lee has come in at $1,000. Brady, I can't tell you how much that means to us. $1,000 goes a long way in a small nonprofit like ours. But we're small in size, not in impact. Every one of these dollars doubled helps us do what we do, which is really keeping San Francisco special. And all you folks at home that have tuned in from wherever you are, I just want to thank you for coming here tonight and being part of this evening. Okay, Rachel, why don't we go to the $250 level and see how many people we can get to help us there? $250 really is a key to our programming. We're talking about having groups of third graders come to the Haas Lilienthal house and learn about the past, get on a field trip, come in, learn about the Gilded Age and all about amazing architecture. $250 gets a class of third graders at Heritage. It also pays for a lot of our public outreach. So much of the support we give to legacy businesses. You heard Bob Berner talk about our educational initiatives. $250 really kind of helps our Instagram go. And I know so many of you love all the Instagram goodness that our communications and programs manager, Carrie Young, puts out every day. Well, $250 is what does that. It really helps us keep the lights on and keep that Instagram going. It's making a big difference. People tell us all the time. They find restaurants, they find bars, they find dry cleaners that are legacy businesses because of our Instagram and our outreach. And that's how we reach people today. $250 also helps us engage with the cultural communities of San Francisco. Right now, we're in partnership with the American Indian Cultural District. And, just those meetings, just going out there and trying to support the work they do, every $250 really helps us do that. I see Christopher Verplank has come in at $250. Thank you so much. Jim Warshell. Oh my gosh, Jim, I haven't seen you in a long time. Ward Hill, an early employee of Heritage. Those of you who got the 50th anniversary booklet, you'll see a good picture of Ward in there. Thank you all so much for coming in at that level. Holly and Michael Arnold, Nicole Meldal from Western Neighborhoods Project, and Matt Adams from Western Neighborhoods Project. Close to my heart, of course. Thank you so much for supporting San Francisco Heritage and the city that we all love. I know a lot of you grew up here like me, and that you have a connection to the city, and that's why you're giving. That's why you're supporting San Francisco Heritage. And many of you have come here from somewhere else and you found a home in San Francisco. And that's what we're trying to do. We want to keep San Francisco special so that it's a home for people who want to find that dream, want to find a place that is different than a lot of other places. And San Francisco is special because of that. Rachel, what do you say we go to the $100 level? Rachel's here helping me from the staff, and she's the one manipulating this. She's doing a great job. She's really put this whole thing together, by the way. I want to give her credit. What can $100 buy, Rachel? What can $100 get for San Francisco heritage? That's what I want to know. I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you right now. Yes, I'm going to tell you, Rachel. I'm going to tell everybody here at home, everybody at the drive-in. You just watched this documentary and you saw these people that did something amazing. They came together and they created this organization that did just significant things. Over 50 years. Now we're entering the next 50 years, and I want you to all step forward. I want you to be the people that our descendants look and give us praise for. You're the people that are going to make the next 50 years as important, as relevant to San Francisco as the last have. So $100, I ask you to step forward and be part of Heritage, be the building blocks for Heritage's growth, to keep the city a land of beauty, of social justice, a welcoming home to all. $100 does that. You're part of this whole thing going forward. So when we all gather together for the 100th anniversary, we're going to remember that you came forward and gave your $100. Mark Paez just came forward for the $100. Thank you, Mark. You do so much important work in the city. I'm so happy that you joined us tonight. And more people are coming in. Where are we at here? We're like at $37,000. This is amazing. Everybody out there, whatever you can give, any amount, whatever feels comfortable to you, I encourage you to do it right now. Let's make this, let's really kill this evening with a great big outpouring of money to get that $50,000 match as close as we can and just get us kicked off for the next 50 years right now. So I see Nancy Myrick, my wife, who has just tuned in from wherever she is, has given $100. Thank you, Nancy. I want to appreciate that. How come your mother's not giving? That's what I want to know. Is she there? Tell her to give $100 too. More people are coming in. We're getting close to that $40,000 mark. So whatever you can give, please do so right now. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. And I want to thank you all for making this evening such a success in every way, This amazing program, the documentary was just terrific. And to have you all here was just very special for me personally. So thank you. All right. Can we thank some people, Carrie? Oh, thank you for the honks out there. I appreciate that. Let's thank some people, especially our sponsors tonight. So many generous folks came forward. Architectural Resources Group, ARG, Conservation Services, Associate Capital Power Station, Jerome and Dowwin Dodson. Thank you, Jerome. Been with us for more than 40 years. Couldn't come tonight, but I want to thank you so much for your sponsorship, for coming forward. And Linda Jo Fitz, of course, Home Structures, JMA Ventures, Martin Building Company. Read the list here. There's so many people that have come forward. Charles Olson, thanks so much for all the help through the years. Page and Turnbull, venerable Page and Turnbull, Plant Construction. So many folks here that we just want to thank, because without them, this couldn't have happened. And I want to thank the generosity of everybody that came forward and the people that helped us out here to put this on. Rachel Wolf, Carrie Young from our staff, Maura Dowell, Christine Collin, I'm sorry, almost blew your name there after asking you 5 times. Andrea, Joe, everybody, Catherine Petrin and Elisa Skaggs, who are our Soirée co-chairs, just did an amazing job pulling this evening together. And all the people who donated for the silent auction and to just come forward and support Heritage. I want to thank you all for your generosity. And I want to remind you all to check out. A lot of you were in the silent auction. Make sure you check out tonight through the Paybe app. And please just continue to stay with us. Like Courtney said at the beginning of our evening, we depend on you for the next 50 years. Every day. So stay with us and thank you again. I'm Woody LeBounty. And for those of you here at the drive-in, we're going to have the DJ playing in a sec, so don't leave yet. For those of you at home, thanks. And I hope I get to see you soon face to face.